All right, we got another one. Do you want to read this one?
Sure. Okay. Am I an asshole for snapping at my daughter's therapist when she tried to blame my daughter's trauma on me?
Yes. I don't have to read it. Yes, you're an asshole.
Okay. I am 43, female. I have a 22-year-old daughter. All my daughter's life, she struggled with mental health issues. She has ADHD, bipolar, and borderline personality disorder.
Oh, that's so hard. Poor thing.
If I'm being honest, I never really understood a lot of my daughter's disorders.
That's because you didn't take the time. A bit of Googling, you'd understand.
I've always approached mental illness as something you just bury deep down. At least she's being real. At least she's being honest. I have to give her that.
Okay,
right?
You're right. She's being honest.
She's anonymous, so, not that
I'm trying really
courageous,
hard to
but
level head here.
And as a single mother, I've tried to do my best, but I know I'm not perfect. Okay, that's good. That's
fair.
step one.
Yeah.
That's step one, right? Recently, my daughter asked if we'd go to one of her therapy sessions with her. I only agreed because she seemed super excited.
Okay,
about
first of all, just to pause right there.
Sure.
Very mature of her daughter to ask that. Like a lot of kudos to ask your mum to come with you to a therapy session.
Do you think it was her idea or her therapist's idea?
Whoever's idea it was, the fact that she did it, I think shows a real sign of maturity and wanting to get better.
Well, is that proof though? Like maybe she doesn't know better. Maybe her therapist. I'm just playing devil's advocate so we can have a conversation.
I'm just saying, as someone who's been in a lot of therapy, it's not easy always to reach out to people in that way.
Yeah.
All right, carry on.
Okay. Okay. So she, I only agreed because she seemed super excited about it. Okay. Nice. So it does sound like something she wanted. Okay, cool. When we got there, her therapist first asked me how I was raised to think about mental health. She said, I wasn't raised to think about mental health at all.
Yep.
She said that she guessed that and seemed kind of snarky, but ignored it. She then asked about my family's history with addiction and mental health issues. I denied any, and she started to list all the things my daughter told and asked if they were a lie. They weren't a lie, but I never saw any of those things as big issues. She then began to explain to me that bipolar disorder is a trauma response. She explained it could be caused by many things, but by me invalidating her emotions so much, like I was invalidating my own, had a play in it. She then tried to tell me ways I can cope with my own trauma that can help my daughter through hers. After listening to her spew absolute garbage for 30 minutes, I finally got up and told her she was a fucking quack and didn't know anything she was talking about. I stormed out and left. Last paragraph. My daughter called me crying an hour later, and I told her she needed to get an actual therapist instead of that bitch. I wasn't upset with my daughter, but I did feel she kind of threw me into the wolves. After cooling down, though, I think maybe I could have handled that wrong, but I am not sure. Am I the asshole?
There is so much.
There's so much going on.
There. Oh my goodness. There is so much to unpack in that.
You want to take first whack?
Oh God, I just need a minute to breathe. That's so much. First of all, okay, is bipolar a trauma response?
Yeah, that's a good question. Look that up while we talk.
I don't know if it is.
Because when I read that, I was like, that sounds like bullshit.
I don't have experience personally with bipolar, but from what I understand, it's genetic.
Genetic. That's what I thought. That was my understanding, that it's not a trauma response.
It says childhood traumatic events are risk factors for developing bipolar disorder.
Interesting. Okay, that makes sense. So there's for instance, OCD is genetic, right? But there are certain things in your life that can trigger it, right? Yes. So that makes so that makes sense. Okay, so I mean, look, clearly.
Wait. So you have it already, but trauma ignites
you're prone to it.
Is what he's saying.
Be prone to it, or likely to already have it, but certain things can trigger it or make it worse.
What I'm asking is it like a seed in the soil that hasn't sprouted out yet, and then trauma creates it to grow?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So it's biological. It's genetic first, but it's not expressed.
A trauma response.
Interesting. I've never heard that before.
So, for instance, like OCD, right? It runs in families often. You're born with it, right? And it's not something you can cure or something you have. But there are certain factors in life that can exacerbate it and make it problematic.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Right? Like
addiction, right? So people are born with addictive tendencies. Like if you're a child of an addict, you'll most likely have that in you too.
Yeah.
It can come up in different times in your life.
And if you just think about it, the process of probably getting overly emotional is like running in your head all the negative, bad stuff. So I can imagine trauma is like accelerating that momentum into some sort of manic state. That makes sense to me. It's kind of not what she said though, right? No.
So here's the sad thing, right?
See, that's the difference. She's making an absolute statement.
So I don't know if this therapist handled the situation the best way. It sounds like she wasn't the most neutral, which is what a therapist should always be, is neutral.
So that's a good point, right?
But it's clear this girl's struggling. I mean, ADHD, bipolar, and borderline personality. I'm sure she has anxiety and depression thrown in there too, because those are like comorbidities.
First of all, let's start with ADHD.
I don't have it. I don't know much about it.
I do, and I don't necessarily believe in it.
You're like, a lot of people have said that to me, but from what I know about the medical community, it's very real.
Yeah, the medical community, of course, they're going to say it's real. You know what I'm saying? But there's also an in-between space where it's like, Western medicine is always of the mind that they can solve it with medication.
Mm-hmm.
But that's not 100% the truth for everything. Definitely for some things.
Okay.
And personally, I can give you my experience from ADHD, where they gave me a 9 out of 10. And they gave me the highest dose possible. And I quit it cold turkey. And guess what? I can focus just fine. You know what it is? It's energy. It's about just focusing on what you want and why you feel certain ways. A lot of people, they feel different than others. So when you're in front of a medical, you're looking at me so skeptic.
No, I'm not.
When you're sitting down in front of a doctor,
This is
right?
a medical tangent.
They don't know how to define you.
Right.
And
But
especially if you're a kid. And so they don't know how to define you. And so they slap ADHD on your medical record and they're like, this is the problem.
see,
it's not always the case.
I can't speak to that because I don't know anything about ADHD, but I want to go back to this real quick. So I think she nailed it in the second paragraph where she says, I've always approached mental illness as something you just bury deep down.
Yeah,
She said it herself.
red flag, right?
Red flag.
Red flag.
She asked about family's addiction and mental illness, and she said she denied it. And then she started listing things that my daughter asked if they were a lie. I said they weren't a lie, but I never saw these things as big issues. This woman sounds like a serial denier, like a head in the sand.
I agree.
And that may work for certain generations, but eventually it comes to head. And
It always
sounds
does.
like it's come out.
Listen to the words she chose too, right? Like I always approached mental health as something you bury deep down. She is writing this.
Yeah.
These are her words, right? She's not like, sometimes I think you can just work through it.
No, she's saying you bury it in the
stay
sand.
positive. She's like, no.
And then she's saying all these things the daughter told her about her family were true. I just don't think they're a big deal, right? So she says some of these things she has, like BPD. Oh, she says by BPD, which is borderline personality disorder, not bipolar. BPD is a trauma response. BPD is borderline.
It's not bipolar?
Yeah, no. Bipolar is separate
so
from
what is
BPD? BPD is borderline personality disorder.
So she's schizophrenic.
It's not schizophrenic, but
What does that mean?
BPD is very complicated. It's you have an you can't how to explain it. To summarize quickly, you can't balance your emotions. You form really unhealthy attachments to people. You have extreme emotions you can't quite balance. It's very
So your
difficult.
hippocampus is shrunk. So your hippocampus is small.
I mean, I couldn't speak to whether your
Hippocampus is the part of the brain that matures by age 25. Which
right,
helps
but I
balance
don't
out
know
your
if that is
emotions.
related to BPT. But BPT.
Well, that's the gland in your brain that deals with emotions, so it has to.
Right.
Right?
I
I mean, I'm not
Sure.
a doctor, you know what I'm saying? But like,
Well, this feels more psychological. Than
Yeah.
like,
Physical.
so
yeah.
if it's okay,
The point is,
right?
we're not,
This is interesting, right?
No, listen, we're not
Now we're getting interesting,
No, okay, we're
right?
not diagnosing this girl, but basically,
Well, she diagnosed herself.
Listen, after listening
We're
to
not diagnosing.
her spew absolute garbage for 30 minutes, I got up and told her she was a fucking quack and she didn't know anything.
Inappropriate way to answer. Yeah.
This woman's the arsehole, like an absolute arsehole.
Probably, but I
She
want to
just
play
said by
devil's
her
advocate
own
here.
admission, she doesn't understand her daughter's disorders. She went to a therapist, okay, who I'm reading the second comment. She says she went to a therapist for years studying this degree. It's her profession to diagnose people, and you come in here after admitting yourself that you bury your mental health problems and you say she's a fucking quack and refuse to listen and accept that maybe family history has some play in what's going on with your daughter. You are the arsehole. You get the arsehole hat.
I think you have like an 80% likelihood that she's the asshole.
She
for
is the
sure.
arsehole.
Right? And that's pretty damn high.
Yeah.
Let's play a little devil's advocate here because you're bringing up something interesting. Okay. You're saying what are you looking at her for? You know what? It's not diagnosing with somebody, right? So if you have BPD.
Yes, this is a
and
diagnosis.
it isn't, right, for sure. That definitely exists.
Yeah.
I'm not denying that. What I'm saying is if it's not biological and it's only psychological.
Right. It's a trauma response.
That's different. right?
Well,
that's interesting, isn't it?
So it says there that BPD is a trauma response. So clearly this girl has had some trauma in her childhood that's led to having BPD.
And she didn't fill that blank in at all.
And the mother decides that that's not any of her responsibility whatsoever.
Like that could be something pretty substantial, right?
Yes.
That's why I'm saying 80%.
Well, we know that already because the way the mother was like, the daughter's like, well, we have these problems in my family and these problems in my family. And the mother's like, yeah, we have those, but they're not a problem. Like,
but here's the issue where we're a little gray area.
All right.
Would you agree that people these days are blowing things completely out of proportion to the point, and this is like a generality, so it's very hard for you to answer yes or no.
Right.
But would you say that people these days are more inclined to overreact?
Like to give a diagnosis, you mean?
No. I'm saying, do you feel that people today and age are more inclined to overreact than maybe our parents' generation?
Overreact to what though?
Anything, just like totally basic generalization.
Yes, perhaps in some things, but then again, in the past, they overreacted about different things. So I don't think humans in general are more overreactive than they used to be.
It's just a different scale.
Yeah.
Like it's a different spread.
And I think we are more aware of mental health. I mean, I know, for instance, right, in the past, the number of suicides was actually very high, but they were almost always almost always written down and recorded as accidents, sudden deaths, randoms. Like they would never record a suicide in a medical record as a suicide. It was recorded as they fell on the stairs, this or that, like that. And then when
people would hide them.
People would hide them. And when you look into the history of families, people talk about actually like we think it wasn't an accident, but if you look at the paperwork, it comes out as an accident. So I think we have a history as humans of not taking care of our mental health, and now we're becoming more aware to it. And you know what? It sounds like this girl's actually really trying to do the right thing.
It does sound like that,
be
right?
in therapy and get her parents involved
22?
and try and get help.
So 43 and 22.
That's 22-year-olds more mature than you are. You should grow the fuck up.
You know, it's also, she isn't responding as a parent.
No,
she's responding
as a toddler. Yes.
Exactly. She's responding as if she's the one who's been slighted.
Yes,
and that
you're
is
a
why
big old baby. Get your daughter proper help.
So we've decided that one.
You're an arsehole.
You're an awful person.
Go play in traffic, as my aunt used to say.
But you didn't have any problems.
What?
It's like, go play in traffic.
Go play in traffic.
But we didn't have any problems.
No, yeah. I've got great mental health.
Right. All right.